This information you are about to hear and perhaps view, these are not necessarily the thoughts or the ideas of Gary C. Clement or the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast. We are in no way, shape, or form affiliated with the parties this story is about or was interviewed for. Parts of this content may not be owned by or the property of the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast, G2 Network Media, or any other company we are affiliated with, and this information is strictly the opinion of those being interviewed. This content is for information purposes only, and although we may make reference to various news stories, we share our own independent beliefs about the content and provide our own opinions. Please enjoy the information. Haard News, hosted by Gary C. Clement. Today's news is made up of so many different issues, and it's hard to keep up. But we all know it's important to keep law enforcement in the community and society, as many in America have a problem doing the right thing. Growing up, my mother always said it's easy to do right, but so many people choose wrong, and once you get in trouble, it's very hard to get out of it. Haard News will tackle all issues that break the barriers of justice for all, freedom for all, and simply a good and strong meaning of democracy for all. The show covers politics, crime, gun violence in our communities, and will introduce guests who have a personal stake in these issues. So without further ado, please enjoy this week of Haard News, hosted by Gary C. Clement. Hi, this is Gary C. Clement, and welcome to Haard News. In this episode, topics of discussion are, number one, the hard work it takes to become an Afro-American female in management, in law enforcement, and the racial divide. Number two, lack of programs that teach citizens how to interact with law enforcement safely. And number three, the importance of community involvement and a law enforcement presence in the lives of our young people. Today's guest is retired Deputy Chief, BJ Counsel of the Durham City Police Department. She is one of the few high-ranking Afro-American females who's seen every aspect of law enforcement. Her business today is U&50, which provides a series of services for police officers and citizens to better understand how to stay safe during and after interactions with law enforcement. How are you all today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for the invite.
Very good.
Great, wonderful. Okay, so first of all, BJ, okay, please just give us a brief history of your past, your history or whatnot, as far as, being a police officer and then moving up the ladder or whatnot in law enforcement, please.
Thank you. I started my career in 1981 in the police academy, but actually back then in the city of Durham was called public safety. So I'm a trained firefighter and police officer. So when the city was trying to save money, and they combined the two together. And like I said, trained firefighter and police officer. Then a few years later, they separated, and I decided to become a police officer. And the primary reason I joined the organization is because I didn't graduate from North Carolina Central University, and I needed a job. And as a universe saw fit, it fit me like a glove. And based on my father's advice as a young child to let my work speak for itself, and I was able to go up through the ranks and made it to deputy police chief.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now, what year was it exactly that you actually became, police chief?
Deputy police chief around 2008.
2008. Okay, so by that time, so that was way after. I was thinking that you actually were a lot older than that, in a sense of, having, say, for instance, like, survived the civil rights years and all that. Because I know that, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like I didn't realize that you were actually a little younger, I guess. But because I know to be a Afro-American female, in a pool of, how could you say it? A bunch of Caucasians or whatnot, and I guess men or whatnot at the time, you were probably one of few. What was that like for you?
I was actually standing on the shoulders of a woman named Glenda Beard. She was one of the first Black females that joined the agency. She made it to major before she retired. And so I had a good mentors there to help me navigate. And it wasn't as difficult as it seemed. Some people would, like on patrol, it was okay. Some of the, I don't want to say they were, some of the conflict sometime between me and subordinates, particularly male subordinates, just had to do with me being a female, and it's sometime I'd run into that once I got off patrol and started having to really manage individuals on a daily basis. And sometimes that was not welcomed. And I think that goes for any woman, black or white, going into a predominantly male institution, and specifically, as you mentioned, white male-oriented organization like law enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Because that's what I know it could have been actually very challenging, early on trying to get used to everything. And then, too, a lot of people, especially men, don't want a woman telling them what to do or being in charge, that kind of thing. So I know that caused, probably quite a few obstacles or whatnot or problems for you.
I don't know whether it caused any obstacles. I think, and what I had a tendency to do was, and I guess because of the paramilitary organization that law enforcement is, it kind of has to do with the rank brings the respect, somewhat respect, so that you got to do what the ranking officer tells you, whether you like it or not, or like the person who is the ranking officer. So that in itself kind of helps because, again, it's a paramilitary organization. I know and I'm aware of persons, and obviously particularly men, did not want to work for me because being a black female or a woman was probably one of the things. But the thing is, I was okay with that because my philosophy and goal was to serve the community. And if you were not interested in serving the community or doing your work, if you didn't want to work for me, then I was okay with that. I was okay with the reputation of you not wanting to work for me, because those that did want to work for me understood I'm just here to get the job done and serve our community members in a professional manner. And if you weren't about that, then BJ is not the woman you want to work for.
I see. Okay. And when it came down to recruitment back, years ago, back in 2008, was it difficult to recruit your staff at that time like it is? I'm pretty sure it's a whole lot, harder now, or a lot more difficult now. What are your thoughts about that?
No, I think it's obviously worse because of the climate now and the conversations and the disliking of individuals. It wasn't obviously better then. Recruitment for law enforcement doesn't necessarily, there's no real drive to go get white men, because they kind of go to law enforcement out of military. So you don't have to do a lot of recruiting for that. It's individuals, people of color, that don't necessarily see this as a profession. And so we got to figure out how to do that, especially in this particular climate. But even back then, trying to get black and brown bodies to recognize that this is a profession. It can be a career. It's a good job. It's not TV. And yes, the stuff about it being risking one's life, there's that part of it too. But mainly you're just dealing with people who are having crisis and having a moment in their life that they just make a mistake. And we need to understand that we're talking about human beings, and we need to approach them in that manner. So it's a industry that's for service, and I'm trying to get people to understand that it's not television. It's about meeting people in the moment that they're having a crisis, and be willing to, you may be the only shoulder that person may need at that moment.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. All right. So after doing this, like I said, and retiring or whatnot from it, you created this company called U&50. Please tell us a little bit about your services there and, how things are ran there.
Started U&50 back in 2015, and the catalyst for that, after talking to a friend of mine, was I wanted to continue to do something, and then Trayvon Martin happened. And Trayvon Martin was not a police interaction. It had nothing to do with law enforcement as far as that incident. There was an interview after the trial, and the media report in the area of the incident, a black male said, "They are always harassing us." And I knew immediately what he was talking about. He was talking about law enforcement, and I was kind of yelling at the screen and trying to understand, if you're saying they are harassing us and you're talking about law enforcement, as a police executive, the thing is, did you tell anybody? Because as a police executive, I want to know if I have officers who are out there that are not being professional or doing the service. And so it became clear to me, or the universe said, this could be your purpose, because I also know as a black female and being in policing, that black folks don't believe that if they file complaints, it will be heard or handled. So I am trying to shift that thought to let people know, yeah, in order for us to change policing, part of that is to file complaints on the ground. As a police officer, I had a white male that I stopped for an expired, I think it was a expired tags or something. And he filed a complaint on me because I didn't smile at him. And my supervisor basically just said, just smile at them. So he just checked me. So from that point forward, I did, but I also smiled at the individual when I saw him in court. So the bottom line is filing complaints has an impact. Doesn't necessarily mean the officer will be terminated. And that's one of the things I talk about is in order for us to get some shift in this, because we got to remember it's a job. So officers are trying to meet expectations. They got bills to pay. They have children that they're sending to college. So filing complaints is, for me, on the ground and understanding that there are systemic issues. But for day-to-day folks who interact, the best thing to do to get some service and attention to officers unprofessional is that complaint.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So while you were actually, deputy chief, in that position, do you feel as if overall that you really made a great impact on the city of Durham?
I do believe so. I, to this day, still see individuals that I met and some of actually friends of mine through the fact that I enjoy police doing law enforcement work. And when I say that, I did my job. I served my warrants. I stopped my cars. But my thing was getting to know the individuals in their community, finding out not only was I doing what I'm supposed to do, but kind of going, why is this individual selling drugs? Why is this individual on drugs? Why is this individual breaking into homes? There's always stories behind these things. So I spent more time trying to get to know what the community needed and making sure that that's what they needed. So yeah, I feel like at least in a small way, people saw me. They didn't see officer counsel, which was very important to me. They saw BJ. And I saw them as a community member. And so the heavy lift was to make sure they saw me, the human being, and not just the badge or the uniform, that they saw me as just an individual who's trying to do service to the community.
I see. Okay. So would you say then that you were actually instrumental in like the changeover in regards to the color of the officers that the different communities and the different areas and whatnot started to see?
I didn't catch the first part of that question.
Do you feel as if you were instrumental in the changeover? Meaning, like I said, to where it used to be, where I'm used to actually seeing like white, police officers, Caucasian police officers everywhere, regardless of if it was a Mexican community or a black community or whatever, Hispanic or whatever, everybody had white police officers. So do you feel as if you were, basically instrumental in that changeover and trying to recruit, more black officers to be in the, the actual communities that people could identify with them?
I don't think I had any input and effect on that at all. And also my white colleagues that I work with, I think everybody understands what side of the table everybody is on. And all we're asking individuals to do, no matter of their race, is to treat individuals as human beings. We all bring stuff to the table. We all bring our different lenses of our journeys to the table. We just have to recognize that when you're in that uniform, you are here to serve, no matter what. I'm not going to tell you that I didn't recognize white males and that they were on the opposite side of the table, but what I can tell you, those individuals were there for me. I saw them interact with individuals in a professional manner. But at the end of the day, my legs weren't under their tables and their legs weren't under my table. But those individuals that I work with understood that we're here to serve and you do it in a professional manner. And at the end of the day, you get in your F-150 and I get in my Prius and I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, I hear you. Okay. So one other thing too, in reading through your information about UN50, I saw clearly that, that you focus with your program there, you focus on police stops and how, a citizen should address a police officer, how, I guess you could say, like, how a police officer should, carry out his, communication there with the actual, stop like that. Could you explain that a little bit more for us, please?
Yeah, and also, yes, I'm basically telling individuals to comply and cooperate through the interaction, even if you feel like you have been profiled or you believe they stopped you because you're black or you're riding in a nice car. Unless that police officer walks up to your car and says, you know what, I stopped you because you're black and you're in a nice car. Mm-hmm. They're not going to do that. They're going to articulate to you what they stopped you for. They're going to tell you you crossed the center lane. It's a law. Mm-hmm. You can't do that. You don't have to agree with it. And don't get caught up in what, a friend of mine that works in Clayton, he said, don't get caught up in the okie doke. Because sometimes, don't allow your buttons to be pushed. You need to cooperate, get through the interaction. And then if you're not, whatever that is, remember, I got complained on because I didn't smile at an individual. You have a right to file a complaint. Mm-hmm. I think what people fail to realize is you have no idea, community members, that sometimes as a police executive, I'm just sitting there on the C-suite waiting for that last complaint to come in because internally I know I have some issues with officer counsel, but I don't have enough to terminate officer counsel. And if you don't file and take the time to file a complaint, that officer is going to still be out there. And so I'm trying to get through the interaction, do whatever they ask you to do, and give them the information, driver's license, registration. And then the other thing is the only thing that you have to answer when you're stopped is your date of birth, mm-hmm. address, and then DOB, address, and correct information. That's it. Name, date of birth, and address. Okay. After that, you can tell them whatever you want to tell them. It's entirely up to you. But then you can tell them, I want to talk to a lawyer. Okay. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
So if you so happen to have a firearm on you, I guess that's something you should disclose early on in the conversation?
Immediately.
Okay.
Let them know immediately that you have a carry and conceal. What I tell folks is don't reach for it. I know most people keep their not driver's license, their registration in their glove compartment. Mm-hmm. If you have a carry and conceal and you have a weapon, don't keep your gun or whatever weapon you have of choice in the same place that you have your registration, because you're going to be reaching for that, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So you want to be reaching in your glove compartment, and the glove compartment drops down, and they see the butt of a gun. That's not going to be good for some folks. Mm-hmm. So yeah. But just let them know immediately, I have a weapon, I have my carry and conceal permit, and show that and let them know. And then tell them where it is, obviously, where the weapon is, so they have an idea where it is. But yes, let them know as soon as possible.
I see. Okay. Another big problem that we're having, I guess you could say too, is like, and everybody is, very familiar with the Tyree Nichols case as well as George Floyd in those cases. In those cases, what did you see that kind of alarmed you in those situations?
First of all, the lack of humanity. Mm-hmm. Just treating a human being as a human being. Mr. Floyd was in cuffs. He was telling you he couldn't breathe. As soon as somebody says you couldn't breathe, and I think the first and least thing you can do is allow them to breathe. So the first thing is humanity. The thing with Tyree Nichols, the same thing. That's allowing themselves to get emotionally involved. And again, it has to do with treating an individual but what also, especially in the Tyree Nichols one that was glaring for those of us in law enforcement, mm-hmm. is a lack of supervision. Mm-hmm. Clearly that was something, not saying that they had killed anyone else, but clearly you could tell by the bravado, the way they were talking prior to and after, the language that they were using. That's supervision. That's lack of supervision, and not just at the ground level, not just a sergeant, lieutenant. That I would love to have been a fly on the wall, that if there haven't been any heads rolling above the rank of a lieutenant in that organization, because somebody failed to manage those officers. And then the other piece that I do, Mr. Clement, is that during my discussions, I put the sticky on everybody. Mm-hmm. There are two people in the interaction. There's the citizen, and then there's the officer. We all have some responsibility in that interaction. The other thing that I try to let people know file a complaint. I'm wondering, you've been paying attention that few people have come out after Mr. Nichols' death and said that they have been abused by some of these same officers.
Mm-hmm.
So the question would be, why didn't you file a complaint if you were abused by some of those officers that were involved in the Tyree Nichols' death? Is there a possibility, if the agency had known that these officers were aggressive or unprofessional, is there a possibility if complaints had been filed by other Black community members that Mr. Nichols could be alive today?
I don't mean to cut in, but is there a statute of limitations there sometimes, or?
Nope.
Interesting. Okay.
So they're filing complaints now, and I think one of them was some time ago. So what I'm trying to get black folks to understand: file the complaints, file the complaint in order to make sure that those officers, again, are held accountable for not being professional or delivering the service. Because with all due respect, as a police executive, I'm not going to lose my job because I have an individual out on the street not doing his or her job. And what filing complaints does, Mr. Clement, it not only holds the officer accountable, it holds the leadership in the agency accountable. So if they don't do anything with the complaint and then you end up with an incident, it's going to end up tracking back to the leadership that didn't take care of the complaint when it came in.
Right. I got you. Okay. And so Ron actually is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So he's got a whole different dynamic there in regards to law enforcement and stops and all that kind of stuff. Ron, you have something to say?
Yeah, well, I like to, congratulate her on being, having been, female, police chief. And I know it's not an easy job, and it's not a lot of female police top positions, chiefs in the country. We have in Philadelphia here, we have Miss Danielle Outlaw. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she just took over, several years now, and she's our police chief. But one of the things that I'm happy about is the fact that I think there's a different perspective with a female than with the male police officers. I mean, you kind of feel, at least if I'm out and about and I happen to be confronted, I feel a little more at ease with a female than I do with a male. And I think it's because you think about that paternal character that women would have, and they would be more compassionate. Although women can be just as deadly as men, I know this. But it's a different perspective with a female, and when it comes to the police, and one of the big problems I've noticed is that some of the police officers, they don't make good decisions when they are confronted with a difficult situation, like in the racial part of it, as far as being Black. And different communities, some police officers say they see Blacks as a threat. I mean, before they shot them or whatever. And but the actions were so quick and so fast and without much thought. It just showed me that there seemed to be a lack of training with a lot of the male police officers. But now, getting back to female officers, I noticed that in one place, and I think it's in what's her name? Her name was Justine Jones, I believe was. She town manager. She took over and became a police head, and then some of the officers quit because of that. I mean, they kind of protested her, but I guess it's an adjustment for male police officers to accept a female police officer, although they know that's their job. So I'm sure you have a bit of tension there when you take over and in charge of males. My experience, I worked for the Philadelphia Police Department as a police photographer for about 5 years. And I was with the police chief was Willie Williams. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Yes, sir.
And he was my police chief, and I worked out of the photo lab, and it was an experience working there. But I did not get to. I didn't have a lot of involvement with the female police officers, the ones that I was around.
Mm-hmm.
But I just take my hat off to females because right now, with the way and I'm a guy, but right now the way the males are running everything, the country, the police department, right now with the elections going on, females in charge now seems to be something kind of attractive because the guys are kind of pretty much got things all fouled up. I wanted to see Hillary Clinton, to be president,
Mm-hmm.
but talking about leadership and positions, and people who are in various different professions, it's just a breath of fresh air when you have qualified female police officers or in any area, So I'm just, I feel that with the experience that you've had and possibly could pass on to to other female who might want to be police chiefs or whatever, I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
I appreciate that. What I'd like to just kind of touch on a couple of things about training. Black women get the same training as everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And we go to the academy with our male colleagues, and we do the same thing. So it actually depends on the individual. And that's the other thing I talk about during my program is that Chauvin doesn't work for the Durham Police Department, doesn't work for Philadelphia, doesn't work for Kinston. So what I try to get people to understand, judge the officer on his or her individual action to you. Just like what's uncomfortable for the law enforcement industry right now is they are being profiled.
Mm-hmm.
So basically the black community is now profiling white males in uniforms. They're basically saying that white man, he's in a uniform, so he has to be a racist. And that is not correct. Just like, black folks are saying police officers are profiling black men. So now the industry is uncomfortable because now they are now being profiled. And what I'm saying is judge an individual based on his or her interaction with you. Mm-hmm. And so that's the part that we've got to, again, to have the conversation. And it's uncomfortable for people to hear that sometimes, but it's got to be that conversation for us and for us to be able to move forward during this climate. Mm-hmm. And understand that this is a good profession to be in. And there is work to try to get more women. I think you're right. Women, for whatever reason, may have that maternal instinct. Mm-hmm. But to say that someone acts quickly depends on his or her experience as to, one of the, just statistically, I'll just put this data out there. Statistically, the number one resistance between law enforcement and the interaction with the community is failure to just do what the verbal command is. Mm-hmm. That is the number one resistance, just not cooperating with an officer's verbal command. And I'm not saying you need to agree with how they talk to you. I'm not saying that. But that is, if you cooperate and get through it, more likely out of 17, close to 18 million contacts on an annual basis, based on a study in 2018, and 1,000 persons have been killed. One death is too many, but 17 million contacts that law enforcement makes on an annual basis. The odds are you're going to survive the interaction.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now tell me, have you, on your watch, have you ever had anything similar to anything that's going on and stuff now where, you get a call and stuff from one of your officers and stuff, he pulled a gun on me and he, so I had to respond. I had to shoot him. How did you deal with that situation?
Never had that situation.
Okay. It's interesting. Wow.
It's interesting that, and I think it's an individual thing, like you say. It's a person to person. Whether it's male or female, it's that really doesn't determine it. It's the person's character, the person's background and intelligence or whatever that determines how they're going to act. You have some men who are much more alert to doing the job correctly, and then you have some guys who are very careless, and maybe the same way with women, you know. But it's just a matter of, like you say, the training is important, and I think that if any individual can receive the right training, and then also I think the background of some people, for example, you have some people that have a lot of hatred in their hearts, but they take on these jobs, and they really should not have that job. That job, they shouldn't be a part of that organization because of their background. But a lot of times that don't come up. In some cases, it has come up, but yet that person still got hired. So I just look at it on an individual basis. It's individuals. And I know that you have some women out there that are brilliant. I mean, and some of them don't get a chance to express themselves because they are women. And some men, you know, we have this complex about, you know, having a woman in charge. But, you know, it's an individual thing. It doesn't make any difference, you know, because she's a woman that she can't do the job. No, some women are well qualified. So, you know, I look at it as an individual thing, not so much as a sex-oriented thing, whether it's male or female.
Okay. You know what? I appreciate you saying that, because one of the stories I had just gotten hired. I'd probably been here less than 4 years, and in a side of Durham, and an individual that actually was a business owner. He told me to my face, this is a black male. He told me to my face, "You're gonna have to call somebody else, because if you come to arrest me, I'm not going. We're gonna have to fight." He just was not going to be arrested by a woman, and I mean, he was adamant about it, and he was much larger than I. I mean, luckily I never had to arrest him, and I, you know, told my squad or my team members about it, and basically they just said, "Look, if you ever have to go arrest him, just let us know. You know, we'll go with you." You know, so that kind of, you know, we work as a team to do that. But the fact, like you said, Mr. Dove, it's the individual. This I had not even, I wasn't there on a call. Mm-hmm. I was just patrolling my community. And this man, he owned a business, and I just happened to be sitting in his parking lot. And he was very clear. If you ever come for me, you're going to have to bring somebody else, because you're not taking me to jail. And I've not done anything to him. I've never approached him in any manner, just sitting in my car, in my uniform, minding my own business, trying to get through my shift. So we bring stuff to the table ourselves. Right. And we don't want to talk about that. That's, you know, right. So some of this stuff, you know, so you could have gotten a woman to be like, "Oh, okay, well, today I'm getting ready to arrest you." Mm-hmm. And, you know, and then here we go. But I was like, okay, well, I ain't got nothing, you know. So how am I supposed to receive that? Right. I'm just doing my job. Mm-hmm. You mad at me because sister I like living indoors. Indoor plumbing does something for me. But you mad because I got to do something. You know, you angry with me because I'm trying to catch a check like everybody else. Right.
Mm-hmm. You know, one of the things that's a hidden fact here in America, and possibly all over the world, and I'm speaking about black women. Okay, you know, one of the hidden truths that a lot of us are not aware of, that black women in any institution that you can think of, everywhere, they are running the show. They're in the secretarial positions. They're hired in high up positions, but you don't hear about them. And if you really look at it, it's a tremendous force of black women in every kind of field there is in the United States. I mean, a lot of times you'll see something on TV and you come to find out, oh, this black woman, she's a supervisor here. Or like in Hidden Figures, behind NASA. Yeah. Who would have known that there was 3 black women that were very responsible for what took place with NASA? Right. But now it's there. I'm discovering, and I'm noticing, black women are the most powerful force in the United States, but a lot of people don't realize that. And they're going to college, they're graduating, and they're going into various professions, and they're brilliant. And really, I don't know if the black women force of a business and industry might overshadow the black men, because a lot of the black men, we subject to incarceration and subject to all manner of different types of tragedies. But in the country, in the United States, if the black women decided they wanted to have come together as a national group, you will find one of the most powerful groups there is, because every corporation has black women working in banking. When I go to my bank in my areas, the black women are running the bank. When I go to different organizations, they're black women in charge. Right now, we're getting ready to have a black mayor here in Philadelphia, Cheryl Parker. Right, we already have a black police commissioner, Danielle Outlaw. Right, and in almost every organization, black women are running things. And the church, if you go into the church, you'll find that black women on this committee or on that committee, so, just a tribute to black women. They are very powerful in America. I don't even think they realize how powerful they are. So when it comes to policing, that's a whole nother area, and they're growing, in there by leaps and bounds. So I'm just saying that there's a lot of powerful, brilliant black women out there that's doing stuff that's very well qualified, but a lot of times you will not hear about it until something just blows up. Oh, she's in charge. I didn't know that.
Okay. So now, BJ, you were also telling us a little bit more about the services that you offer. If you could, tell us, explain a little bit more about those, please.
Yeah, I do workshops for different folks. I mean, the information is good for anybody, black, white, all persons. But obviously, in this climate, I created it first because I'm a black woman and wanted to be able to my perspective. So, and being a police executive, so I kind of know, what happens internally and the expectations are. So I'm trying to inform folks through that lens. So I'm crawling up on having done close to 4,000 persons since 2015, and most of my participants have been black and brown folks. So any churches, corrections, I volunteer at the Orange County facility for individuals who are about to leave the corrections and come back into the community, so they'll know how to navigate law enforcement, schools, all kinds of folks. I mean, like I said, this information is good for anybody. I've just released a film in February. It's called #Humans, HUEMANS, a guide to get home. You can get it on my website or either on my YouTube. And it's just basically teaching people a little bit about the history. It's about a little less than 30 minutes. And then it has an updated version of the talk. So the information is good. And I think what I also try to do is be, I think I may have mentioned this already, is very candid about both sides of this discussion. I also created a pilot program to train police officers to help them understand why black folks looking at them sideways, that it's not them, it's the history. And one of the things that always comes up in these conversations there are 5 things, but one I'll put out there is just respect. Folks just want to be respected. I mean, and something as simple as on the south side of town, a police officer might roll up and say, "What's up, homeboy?" But it'll go on the north side of town is, "Mr. Dove, can I help you today?" Why can't you do that on both sides of the city?
Right. That's right.
So it's about professionalism. That's all. It's just about respect, and that is the number one thing that every time I do these presentations, it's about respect, and that's all we ask. And that you gentlemen have talked to us training, but basically professionalism. And then if you're not getting professional, again, I keep going back to look. I got complained on for not smiling. You can certainly complain on somebody who's being abusive or unprofessional.
Right.
Just check them. Check them.
Wow. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. I remember one time when I was younger and living in Florida, I was taking a band member or whatnot back to Sanford, Florida, where Trayvon Martin was killed. And I actually got stopped and stuff like 11 o'clock at night. And it was, and I don't know exactly, I forget exactly what was, the problem. I think a tail light was out or something. But anyway, it was, I slowed down, and it was like pitch dark. It was in the middle of the bushes. And I got stopped by a white female sheriff deputy. And she was very nice. But again, like I said, if I had have actually addressed her the wrong way or acted the wrong way, she could have shot and killed me right there. But of course, thank God, the way that I was raised and stuff, I wasn't going to do that. I mean, I knew not to do that. So everything went fine, and I went home, and she went home.
And that's it. And I I really appreciate that comment, because my primary goal, my only goal, and again, I think I mentioned this earlier, I am aware of systemic issues, okay? But for regular folks that get pulled over on a daily basis, I just need y'all to get to the house. That's it. Just cooperate, get to the house, file a complaint later. Stop, don't be all up in the head trying to figure out, well, they stopped me because of this. Okay, well, they may have, but they ain't going to sit there and tell you that. I need you to get home.
Right.
Do what they ask you to do. Give them the information. Give them your basic information, and keep it moving, and get to the house. That is the ultimate. That's the reason I started this business. Comply, then complain. Cooperate, then complain. And then just keep it moving. And then later on, check the officer and his or her attitude. And also, just real briefly, what you just said about being stopped in the bushes. If that happens to you, and it's a dark street, because we all understand that, because right in this climate, the popo's nervous and the citizen's nervous. Slow down. If they pop the lights on you in these dark woods, whatever, and slow down, put your flashes on, turn on the interior lights, and drive slowly as quickly, straight to somewhere that's lit. Right. Okay. Because usually, and when I say put your flashes on, I mean your emergency flashes. Don't put your turn signal on, because what you're telling the officer, or you're communicating to the officer, is I'm getting ready to pull over. And then when you don't pull over, then we shift into, well, why you ain't pulling over? You told me you were going to pull over. That's what's going on in our head. You don't know that, but that's what's going on in my head. You just put your right turn signal on, told me you were going to pull over, but you didn't. Emergency flashers, slow down about 10 or 15 miles, turn your interior lights on, and if you can safely do it, dial 911 and say, I'm at the main and trying to get home street, and I know there's an officer behind me, but I'm just trying to get somewhere safe. I mean, people are doing it all over the place now, and officers recognize that may happen, but you need to let them know that that's happening, and that's what you're doing.
I see. Right. Okay. So with your program, is it just available here in the Durham or RDU Raleigh area, or is it in other states, or where exactly?
Yeah, I'm wherever folks wanna have me. I was just in Bedford, Virginia, this past weekend. So I'm wherever people feel like I can be of service for them. So yeah, I'm not confined for the state of North Carolina. I believe this is my purpose, with the little small talents and gifts that I have, and the fact that I'm Black, female, police executive, that I want to share to make sure my community members and all community members get home safely.
I see. Okay.
Wonderful.
Any services that you're looking to add to what you currently have to make your business even better?
No, I think I'm one of those folks, Mr. Clement, that believes in staying in my lane. This is a lane I'm familiar with. I can speak on it with some intelligence. The only thing that I'm trying to do is basically to get people to see my film, because I think that can help a lot of people. It's free. And then also hopefully increase the training for law enforcement, especially the new generation, because to get them to understand, and also to try to promote it's okay to be police officer, because it is an industry of service. So if you have a heart of service, it really is a good industry to be in. It provides service in your own communities, small communities. I think you both know that this country is made up of Mayberries. It's not made up of New Yorks and Atlantas and Durhams. It's made up of organizations. Most of the organizations in law enforcement in this country have almost 90% of them have less than 75 sworn persons. So we're talking about small communities, and that's who I'm trying to, I spend a lot of my time trying to get into those communities and help them navigate what Kinston, North Carolina. I've been working with them for a couple of years now, and it is chocolate city, for the most part. But their law enforcement agency is predominantly white, run by the leadership. But they get it, and they do a lot of work with me and working with NAACP there. So the fact is, just because they're white in a uniform, don't judge them by that. Just like, again, they're being profiled, and we got to figure out, we got to stop profiling each other, because you can't judge us based on what you see.
Well, one thing I want to say, one of the challenges I think you have, and most police departments all over the country will have, is, to today's, and not just necessarily today's youth, but older people too, they need to be trained, and once you're approached by a police officer, then there's a procedure that you need to go through, because that could be a very potential dangerous situation. Because if the police officer perceives you as being a threat, then things might not go well. But if all of us know that, okay, that you explained to us, you slow down, and you put your hazard lights on, and then you turn your inside light on, and so forth. And I think there needs to be some training. Maybe some of the churches could start doing this. Maybe there could be organizations out there that just dedicated themselves to how to relate to police stops, because a lot of the youth today are very belligerent, and some of them are very fearful of police, because especially the black youth, and black, maybe Hispanic, very fearful of police because they see what happens on a regular basis. But I think that what you just said, as far as training, and the things that you just said a few minutes ago, is very, very important. And I think that needs to be spread around the cities and towns. Listen, here is how here's how you respond to a police stop. Maybe that should be taught in schools. I don't know, but it's very important, because it's just that little slight, that little slight wrong move by certain people that will cause things to go south. You know what I'm saying? And I think that we need to be educated. And basically, most of us have an idea, but some of us don't, because we make little mistakes. I mean, you don't argue with the police officer. Sometimes when I'm on social media and I look at these police stops, and they want to argue with the police, and and listen, what kind of wind do you have? So what you said is so very important, and I think some kind of way it should be put out there on a big scale, how you deal with respond to police stops.
And that's my film, and that's why we did it. It's less than 30 minutes, and it has, like I said, an updated version of talk. One of the things, Mr. Dove, is that I hear sometimes, like, I actually heard a college student say this to me several years ago, that she was telling her other colleagues, don't get out of the car. I was like, no, you have to get out of the car. That's a Supreme Court ruling back in the 60s. You have to get out of the vehicle if you're asked to get out of the vehicle. If you don't get out of the car after being asked to get out of the vehicle, things go south rather quickly. But if you listen to the film, most people think I am a nonprofit. I am not a nonprofit. I am a LLC. But I did this film to get information. It gives you, like I said, it's an updated version of the talk. It gives you all the tips that you need to know to safely interact with police officers and how to get home safely, because that is the priority. When I started this business in 2015, and when I close my eyes, it will always be, I just need folks to get to the house.
I see.
Very good.
Okay, cool. Okay, so in closing, just give us the contact information for you, social media handles where people can actually reach you, as well as, take a look at some of the work you're doing. Thank you for that, sir. My website is UN50, and I'll spell that for you, YOUANDFIVE, uppercase dash, the letter O.com. And you can find everything you need there. Of course, I have a UN50 Facebook. But my film, I think, can help a lot of folks. It's free. I need folks to look at it. If you like it, spread it around. It has everything that you need. And if you want me to come out, that's fine. I will do that. But the film gives you a lot of information that I feel like a little bit of history. So like I said, it's a little less. It's about 28 minutes.
And when we put it out there, we kind of said, kids play on a video hours and hours at a time during the week. They can take 30 minutes to learn how to save their lives during the interaction with police officers. So I appreciate the opportunity to put that information out there. Thank you both to you.
We really do appreciate our guests who participated in this episode, and we hope you learned something that will bless your day and your life. For all who are interested in learning more about the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast, please visit www.amazon.com and order my book, The Gary Clement Radio Show, When Strong Afro-American Men and Women Stand Up. It covers everything about us and features a variety of Afro-American personalities who speak out about the importance of education and literacy in the Black community. Well, we thank you for tuning into our podcast. Please send us your email address so we can contact you when we have new releases and new episodes and new projects as well. You can reach us at gccpresents@yahoo.com. And also, if you're interested in submitting any materials or want to get in touch with us, please do so by simply sending an email to gccpresents@yahoo.com. That's G as in Gary, C as in Charlie, C as in Charlie, presents@yahoo.com. So until next time, do take care. And this is a G-Tube Network Media production.